Hello to everyone watching, and thank you for joining our interview series here at Formula Careers. We're aiming to provide helpful information for you to access the career path you want in motorsport. Today's interviewee is Gerard Torres. Gerard was a design and product engineer at Mercedes Formula One team for many years and then went on to found Motorsport Engineer, which we will talk about later. Hi Gerard, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very well, thank you.
Great. So let's start off with talking about what you currently do. So kind of what are your roles and what are your responsibilities in those roles?
Yeah, so currently I'm the founder of Motorsport Engineer. Motorsport Engineer is a platform, an e-learning platform in the niche of motorsports engineering, as its name says. And basically, my role is really varied. So there's a lot of things that I do, from talking to course leaders to students to looking after all the accounts. Really, some things are exciting. Some others are quite boring, but there's a lot that I do, really.
So kind of what does your day-to-day look like? What's a working week look like for you?
That's a good question. I don't think there is a clear pattern on what I do. So sometimes the focus is on developing new courses. Sometimes the focus is on supporting students. At the moment, we're very busy organizing a series of webinars with some industry players and suppliers to the motorsports industry. So I think, unfortunately, there's no set pattern. There's no 2 weeks that look the same. But I think it also makes it a bit more kind of fun and enjoyable at the same time.
Lots of people who work in motorsport tell me that nothing looks the same in their weeks. And what's the best thing about your job?
I think if I had to pick one thing, I'd say is meeting and getting to know and to work with a lot of different people, right? So I have the opportunity to talk to you today and meeting you today, which is really exciting and it's really good. But I am also talking to professionals in the industry from a lot of different categories, from Formula One to Formula 3, Formula E. So having the opportunity of meeting so many different people with different kind of skill sets and from different countries as well, that's extremely exciting. And at the same time, we've got over 1,000 students in our platform as well, and you know, I keep close contact with many of them, and that's also kind of really enjoyable. So I think if I had to pick one thing, it would be talking to and meeting a lot of different people.
So now we've done today, we're going to go back to the start. So what did you study at school and then at college or university?
So I'm from Barcelona in Spain, and in secondary school, I was very much focused on technology. I think that's how the intensification was called at school. And to compare to the UK, is basically the typical sort of maths and physics kind of subjects. And then at university, I studied mechanical engineering, also here in Spain. And then I went on to the master's degree at Oxford Brookes University. I studied the MSc in motorsports engineering, and I think that's about it. Yeah.
And whilst you were studying, what work experience or extracurriculars did you do?
So in Spain, while I was doing my mechanical engineering degree, I part-timed in an automotive tier 1 company, which is called Ficosa. So they are basically a supplier to the automotive industry. They do parking brake levers, gear shifters, you know, this kind of things, components for cars, basically. And then I also did a little bit of Formula student, and unfortunately, I only did a little bit, but I didn't do as much as I would have liked. But that's what I did.
What was the Formula student experience like for you? Because lots of people do it and lots of people love it.
Yeah, as I said, I didn't do very much of it, so I only designed a few parts for the car. But I didn't take any leadership role, and I wasn't as involved as other people. But I think looking back, this is something I do regret. because there is so much to learn from Formula Student, not only from technical side of things, so everything that you learn from working hands-on components, designing parts and so on, and running the car, but also working as a team, working with other people. And there's so much that people can learn there that is going to be extremely beneficial in the future in the career of anybody who is very interested in working as part of a team in motorsports, for instance. That I cannot stress enough how important it is to get involved in Formula Student.
And then this next question is my favorite question. So what did you want to be when you grew up?
So as I said, I'm from Barcelona, right? The city of Gaudi and several other architects. I really wanted to be an architect. When I was in primary school and secondary school, I still have lots of drawings of buildings that I kind of was designing from scratch, and I just loved drawing buildings. That was kind of what I wanted to do. But I had a passion, which was cars and motorbikes. I knew I loved racing. I wasn't so much into Formula One. I think I was more into motorbikes, if I'm honest. But I think it was this kind of passion that kind of was growing as I was also growing, that led me to choose mechanical engineering in the end. So it kind of shifted my focus and chose mechanical engineering.
So now we've done the now and the start, we're going to do the middle part. So
Okay.
What other jobs have you had before your current role? How did your career path evolve?
Yeah, so so I had this internship with Ficoso, the tier 1 supplier I already mentioned. And then I moved to the UK, studied the master's degree in motorsports engineering at Brooks. And when I graduated, I was very lucky to be one of the first graduates being accepted at what we would call the current Mercedes Formula One team. That was back in November 2010. So towards the end of the first year of the Brackley team being branded as Mercedes after Braun GP. Stayed there for almost 8 years, and then I left and I did about just over a year of freelancing in Germany, in Cologne, a company called Toyota Motorsport. I think nowadays they're called different. They're called Toyota Gazoo Racing Europe, if I'm not wrong. And then I've also worked in a mobility company. It's called Free Now. And yeah, so really not that many roles, because I spent a lot of time at Mercedes, but I think it was a very enjoyable experience, and there was a lot that I learned there. And also I was very lucky to experience the change from being in the midfield to then winning races and championships. So yeah, I do not regret having been there for many years.
What made you leave Mercedes? What made you sort of change?
That's an interesting question. Many people ask me that. So I think I could still be there, but I think it gets to a point that you're sort of curious of seeing other things, right? And it's not only with me. I've noticed there's other colleagues that I had at Mercedes that also experienced similar feelings. And it's in human nature. We want to experience as many things as possible while you can. So even though I said I do not regret having spent so much time working for Mercedes, I was noticing there was a lot of other things I was missing out in my life. One of them could be, being closer to my family here in the Barcelona area in Spain. Another one could be learning from different industries as well. So Formula One is extremely exciting for many reasons that, of course, I'm sure many people know already. But there are also other industries that are very, very interesting. And yeah, I just felt that there were other things that I was missing out on and I really wanted to experience.
So what's been your biggest challenge and how did you overcome that challenge?
Biggest challenge. So I think generally I'm fairly resilient. I'm not the most resilient person by far, but I'm kind of okay. But but to me, the time that I struggled the most was sort of the first 6 months working at Mercedes. So I had never, when I was in Spain, in Barcelona, I had never really kind of lived abroad or traveled that much. I moved to the UK thinking, okay, my English is sort of fine. I'll be able to get by without any major trouble. I landed in Oxford. I was completely wrong. So I would go to the supermarket and I couldn't understand pretty much any word that the cashier was telling me or people were telling me. So that was fairly difficult. And then, yeah, the first 6 months at Mercedes, I think it was more the pressure that I was putting on myself than anything else. But that pressure of being in Formula One is kind of, the pinnacle of motor racing. A lot of people want to get there, and with the most brilliant engineers in the world in that same place, I think that was a lot of pressure, basically. And I was more worried on doing great at what I was doing than actually enjoying what I was doing, if that makes sense. And I think personally, there was a period of time that I wasn't enjoying at all. It was actually quite hard, quite terrible. I was trying to fit in somehow, although that was all in my mind, right? And it's funny because then I've talked to other people who are not kind of British. They're either from other European countries, or their mother tongue is not the English language, and they all went through similar kind of feelings and a similar experience. So I think it's something natural, right? Whenever we change something so big in our lives as relocating and moving to a foreign country with a foreign language and a different culture, there's going to be a period of time that you'll have to adapt. But at that time, I just didn't know about this kind of natural feeling that I would go through, and I think it was fairly challenging. But it got fine at the end.
And what's been your proudest moment? A little bit of a nicer question.
I think, it may sound like a cliche, but winning the first championship with the team, I think that was incredible. That was something I had never thought of. So I was saying in the beginning that when I was younger, I was into motorbikes. I knew I loved motorsport racing, but I didn't really was that much into Formula One. I'm not the typical guy that knows, remembers certain races and who won in such racetrack and so on. I'm not that kind of guy. But I've always loved racing. So first getting into Formula One was very, very special. And then winning races and winning a championship, it did really feel like something very special, something very unique. And I think what made it so special was also the fact that I was involved in a team with people coming from all over the world, right? We had, of course, lots of Brits, but there were Italians, French, Spanish, Australians, Americans, and so on. I think it's this kind of multiculturality of Formula One and everybody pushing towards achieving that one goal makes it extremely special when you finally achieve the goal that we are all pushing for.
How did you get your first job in motorsport? Was it just you saw it online, you applied, or?
Yeah, so the first job was with Mercedes, and it was a typical, have every single careers page of every single Formula One team, MotoGP team, Formula 2 team, whatever it may be, WRC, have every single career page saved in your favorites in your browser, and check them regularly. If there's a possibility to set up alerts from their own pages, set them up. But I would just check them very regularly I'd say at least on a weekly basis. I would also check on the jobs page in Motorsport. So whenever there was something that I felt attracted to, mainly around aerodynamics and mechanical design and so on, I would submit my CV, right? And that's basically how I found my job. It was online research, making sure that your CV is polished and it's nice. Of course, the application package needs to be perfect, but everything was online. I didn't know anybody at the team. Everything was online.
And if you could pick one thing that you've done that got you to where you are today, what would it be?
I'd say there are two things. One is living my home country, for sure, for many reasons, of course. Like there's a personal growth side of things, but then on the other side, I think, or the second thing rather, was moving to the UK specifically, and at the heart of the Motorsports Valley, where basically it's the Oxfordshire area. There's so much knowledge in the field of motorsports. You could basically visit any town in the area, and the chances are you'll find someone who works for a Formula One team or a Formula 2 team or some kind of racing team, and I think that's just incredible. For someone like me from Barcelona, I had never met anybody working in Formula One before. And the fact that you can go somewhere in the world and have so much talent, so many people working in that specific field that you're extremely passionate about, that's very special. And I think that's the best thing that I did, really. I wouldn't say there's anything to do with my studies or having picked one university or another one. I'd say it's moving abroad, learning from other people from from other places in the world, from different cultures, and being at the right place, which in this case is Oxford or Oxfordshire.
And lots of people that I've interviewed sort of say soft skills are really important, but they're often something that young people overlook. So what can young people do to develop their soft skills?
So I completely agree. Soft skills are as important or slightly more important than technical skills or hard skills, let's say. And I learned this at Mercedes. There's a huge focus on the culture of the team and the fact that you've got to work with other colleagues. That's emphasized on a daily basis. I still remember the company values, which are defined by the word pride, which stands for passion, respect, innovation, determination, and excellence. And with these words, with these values, you already get the picture of what they expect from people and how do they expect people to behave. And it's extremely important for candidates who are willing to find a job in companies like Mercedes, for instance. They have to be aware of the company values, because when they are being interviewed, they're not only going to be asking them technical questions, they will also try to analyze whether the personality will fit in the culture of the team. And the closer the personality is to their culture, the better, because that means that the person is going to get to speed with working with a group of people that are working on a fast pace. They're going to fit in a much shorter period of time. So that's exactly what they want, right? They want to put someone in a machine that's already running at high speed, and they don't want the machine to slow down when they fit a new part. They want to make sure that the machine can roll at the same pace. So that's the point in making sure why people should focus on soft skills. In terms of what can people do to develop soft skills, I'd say Formula Student is a very good choice. Formula Student teams these days are basically mini Formula One teams. So they have very similar challenges, tight deadlines, budgets, different kind of points systems that they have to achieve several points to score and win the events. So that means that the challenges or how this reflects on the behavior in people is very similar to what people working in Formula One teams actually experience as well. So you'll work under pressure. You'll have colleagues that maybe don't perform as well or don't perform as they would be expected to perform. And there might be disagreements. There might be times when there are conflicts and so on. And this is a very human and natural behavior. We tend to fall into these traps. But I think what I think what students have to realize is this is actually a learning opportunity. And when you've got a colleague that maybe is not performing as well as they could, is a great chance to helping them out, offering your hand for the benefit of the team, of the overall group. And this happens also in Formula One. So Formula One is filled with excellent people, but we all have our own personal kind of situations and our personal difficulties from time to time. It can come from, family members, from people we love, from friends, and so on. And it's normal. We are all going to face these kind of difficulties at some point, and we have to be ready to help people whenever necessary for the benefit of the outcome, of the goals that we're trying to achieve. And the last thing I will say about this point is anybody who's a member of a Formula student team, whenever they spot opportunity to help someone, they should really jump and take that opportunity, because if they want to apply for a Formula One team and they get called for an interview, they are going to be questions on situational or behavioral scenarios. So questions like, tell me about a time in which you faced a challenging situation, or a colleague was kind of not following the guidelines of the group. These kind of questions. These experiences that they can acquire from working in Formula Student are exactly the perfect answers that Formula One teams are looking for, right? So it's this is why Formula Student is so good, because you will not only develop technical skills and hands-on skills at kind of designing, manufacturing parts for the car and running the car, but you will also be developing soft skills that are very much super important in any team, basically.
So we've started to touch on it there with the soft skills talk, but what advice would you give to young people wanting to work in motorsport, sort of more general advice?
That's a good question. So I think the first one people must remember is that motorsports as an industry is extremely small, right? So there are only so many opportunities, and there are a lot of people who want to get into this industry. And there are a lot of clever people out there, extremely clever, a lot of clever people who are at university and are brilliant. And people get in touch with me and tell me how frustrated they are that they've applied for 10 times in several Formula student teams, or they've been trying for 5 years and they've had no luck. Unfortunately, that's a reality that we have to cope with, and everybody should be aware of this. So my advice to overcome this difficulty is, number one, make sure that you understand what are the challenges that Formula One teams face. I worked in an aerodynamics department, so I know very well that aeroelasticity, for instance, is a hot topic. It's been a hot topic for the last 8 or 10 years or so. So try to make sure that you're very good at something. Formula One teams are looking for specialists in very niche areas of car development. So make sure that you understand what challenges Formula One teams are facing when they develop their cars, and develop your skills around certain specific challenges that they face, because they want you to join them and help them solve that problem or those challenges that they're facing. So that's one of them, and the other one is to not give up. Right? As I was saying, there are very limited opportunities, and a lot of people who want to get into the industry, but I would say there are enough opportunities for the right people. So don't give up. Keep pursuing your goals, and work on differentiating yourself from the rest of the candidates. I think that's the most important thing. And don't overlook soft skills that we've already touched on.
So obviously, as the founder of Motorsport Engineer, how can Motorsport Engineer specifically help students?
So Motorsport Engineer is an e-learning platform that we're building around the niche of motorsports engineering, of course. And we have a number of online courses that are led by industry professionals. At the moment, we have 5 courses that touch on aerodynamics, trackside aerodynamics, performance engineering, and vehicle dynamics, and another one on partnerships management, so more on the marketing and commercial side of things. But we are currently working on increasing the offer of courses that we've got. So within a few days, we're going to go from 5 courses to 10 courses. And the topics are going to be around data engineering, strategy and race engineering, composite engineering, CFD methodology. So really trying to cover as many aspects as possible within race car development, and not only focused on Formula One, but also in different categories like Formula 3, Formula E, and so on. And what we want to do is really become a big platform with lots of courses, ideally over 50 courses around this subject. And the goal basically is to upskill engineers, either students or young professionals who really want to make it into the industry. We want to upskill them and really overcome this knowledge gap that exists between university and the industry, and shape the next generation of motorsport engineers. So this is kind of on the educational side of things, but we're also doing some careers mentoring for a number of people. The good thing about our courses is that we've got a number of tests that we run, and also assignments that students have to complete, and they get feedback from the course leader, which of course is a motorsports engineering professional. And this is serving as a great opportunity to spotting the best candidates. So what we're doing with these best candidates that we identify is we're doing direct introductions to people from our network that work in the best companies, like in Formula One, for instance. And we're already seeing some results with some interviews that are occurring, and hopefully job postings that are going to be made available to them. And we're also, of course, like doing all sorts of mentoring along the way. So we help them with the CV, with the cover letter, and we try to help them that making sure that the application package that they submit is as polished as possible and as nice as possible. And we also help them with the interviews. So we have an overview and experience in recruiting people and candidates to come into Formula One. So we know how the interviews are structured and the sort of questions that are being asked. We help them so that there's kind of less stress in the process, and they expect they can know what to expect when they are being interviewed with Formula One teams.
Sounds great. So obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and a lot of students are worried about how that might affect opportunities that they might have sort of been able to take part in the future. So what would you say to young people that are worried about opportunities sort of disappearing at the moment?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's true. We're facing a global pandemic that is affecting every business out there, and that includes Formula One teams and any other type of motorsports company. And sadly, there are a number of people that I've been helping that received an offer in leading teams, and these offers have been withdrawn because of the uncertainty stemming from the pandemic. So this is a reality. But what I would say again is, number one, don't give up. Right? This will end at some point, hopefully this year, but definitely this will end, and we'll get back to normal at some point. That's number one thing that I would say to encourage people. Number two is, don't waste your time. We're all home. We're locked down. We cannot leave. We cannot visit our friends, our relatives. Don't waste your time. Like there's so much that you can learn from home. There are a ton of courses, online courses available online. Of course, like we're doing our own courses, but there's so many other courses and resources that are available online that you can benefit from. Buy books online and get them delivered home. There's a lot to learn there as well. Do not waste your time. And to me, number three is a very important one. So as I was saying, we're all home, and everybody's getting accustomed to using digital platforms and this kind of more technological tools, and we're all getting used to being available on these digital platforms on pretty much 24/7, and that's for good or for bad. I leave that to a different day. But what that means is that people are more, let's say, open to answering messages online, right? So on LinkedIn, for instance, is a great tool for networking and getting to know people. So I would use that wisely, try to connect with people, send them polite notes when sending the connection request always, and give them a reason why you want to connect with them. But connect with people, try to talk to people, make sure that you can put yourself in front of their eyes, that they know who you are. And yeah, just make sure you can connect to people and don't waste the opportunity that internet provides.
Absolutely. So finally, have you got anything else that you'd like to add?
Not much, really. I just want to thank you for the opportunity and congratulate you, Luis, and the whole Formula Careers team. I think you're doing an amazing job, and I would encourage you to continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you. So thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for watching. If you do have any suggestions or requests for people for us to interview, please let me know at Izzie Holman, that's IZZIEHOLMAN on all social media, and I'm on LinkedIn too. Until next time.